from $1,000 to 189 rental units, all before the age of 30.
Welcome to Real Estate Investing Secrets. We're all looking for freedom and the opportunity to live better, more fulfilling lives. But most of us were trained our entire lives to work for someone else and chase their dreams. How can we use real estate investing as a vehicle to achieve financial freedom? My life is dedicated to answering your real estate investing questions and helping you build an investing business that allows you to change your life and the world around you, and to enable you to turn your dreams of financial freedom into a reality. My name is Mike Hambright from FlipNerd.com, and your questions get answered here on the Real Estate Investing Secrets Show.
Hey, Austin, super excited to see you here today, buddy.
Howdy, Dylan.
How are you doing today, man?
Great. It's a good day.
Awesome. You always bring a lot of intensity and excitement and a big smile to everything that you do as long as I've known you. And I want to welcome you to the show. This is Real Estate Investing Secrets on the Flip Nerd Podcast Network. We have done 1,500 plus podcasts. We would love for you to subscribe and like and leave comments and all that stuff. But more importantly, I want you guys to pay attention to every single thing that you hear from our guest today, Austin Hughes, who at the tender age of 28 at the time of this taping has 189 rental units, which is amazing at any age. So we're going to dig right in and see what changed Austin's life from being a regular person to an amazing real estate investor in such a short amount of time. And this man's very humble, so he's probably already smiling a lot because I'm looking at the camera, not at him. So Austin, tell us a little bit in the beginning how you even got interested in real estate investing.
How I got interested, you said going from a normal person to this. I've never really considered myself normal, but I was at school at Texas Tech University, and I didn't see a career path forward with what I was studying, business management, entrepreneurship, right? But they were just teaching you how to be a good employee. And so I just thought, I'm just going to spend my time learning something useful on my own time. So I just consumed all I could about real estate because I thought, yeah, when I'm 40, 50 and maybe have some money, then I can invest in this. And everyone kind of knows that it's one of the best vehicles for building wealth. So I just said, well, I'll just make the most of my time while I'm here. So I intensely studied real estate for about a year, and then I realized, oh snap, I might be able to actually start doing this sooner rather than later. So that's kind of what got me interested in it.
So you kind of told us a little bit being going to school at Texas Tech. So why don't you rewind a little bit? Tell us where you grew up, where you're from, kind of how life was before you were this big real estate mogul that you are now.
It's funny when you work from home because you could be a real estate mogul out of your spare bedroom here.
You can today, right?
So where Texas Tech is in Lubbock, Texas, which they call it West Texas. It's kind of Northwest Texas. I was born here, but really grew up in Houston. So love the city. So Lubbock, I moved back about 10 years ago when I started going to college at Texas Tech. And so coming from Houston, Lubbock feels really small. We've got about 300,000 people or so. But I grew up playing a lot of basketball, singing. I'm musical a little bit. So just doing different things before I came back to Lubbock 10 years ago. Didn't think I was going to stay. But when I graduated, I was kind of torn. Do I stay here? I had just started my business. Or do I just go pick up and keep going in Houston? And had no clue and ended up staying here. And then one project led to two projects, led to three, and it just snowballed out of control to where now here we are 10 years later, still here in Lubbock. But I've grown to love it.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me. I'm super lucky to be able to meet and hang out with investors like you, Austin, and get to know your stories and really, what brought you to entrepreneurship and being a real estate investor. And we have people basically from every walk of life in our business, but I think down deep, we all have that same feeling as an entrepreneur and as someone who just kind of wants to make it happen. Right. So
Mhm.
when did that click for you? I know that not everybody knows you're pretty tall in terms of your height, right? And you're in good shape. You're a pretty decent athlete. So did that help shape you, you think, as far as being successful in business at a younger age?
Um, no, not really. Actually, so when I'm looking for people to bring into my company in a sales role, athletes are the top of the list because you have that work ethic ingrained in you. Athletes understand that the more if you're not where you want to be, you just put in more work and you put in more work, and they have that right mentality. They don't just say, "Well, I didn't do it, I give up." No, athletes get that, and so that's what I look for when I'm adding salespeople to my team. But actually, for me, what kind of clicked with me being able to get started in real estate, but more importantly, continue and just be consistent, was I cut myself off from my parents when I was 20. I just turned 21. That was coincidentally a few months before I started my real estate business. And so what I realized is I would do some network marketing. I would do this or that. I would try to get a little side hustle going. And my parents, we've never been poor, but they've never had money in the bank saved up. It's just always kind of lower middle class, which had every opportunity I could have asked for. But what it led to is I got too comfortable. So I always had a crutch, and it was my last summer going into my last year of college. My mom was encouraging me. She said, "Hey, just take the summer off. You're never going to get to be a kid again. You'll never have the free time to a full summer." And I was really tempted to quit this internship I was doing. She said, "You can stay here and I'll pay for all your food," everything like that. And I just had an epiphany when I was driving home from that internship, which was horrible. I was trying to give financial advice as an intern and I knew nothing and I was broke. But um, it clicked that I needed to cut myself off and get rid of that crutch because, uh, you know, being talented or doing well in things, I would make it kind of far. And then there would be some obstacle that I just couldn't get past. And when I quit, everyone was like, "Oh, pat me on the back. It's so good, Austin. Oh, wow, you did so much more than most people could. Good job." And they would all they would all applaud me quitting stuff because I just I would go further than most, but then I would find a good justification to quit. And so that's what I realized is I need to put myself in a bind. I only had a couple $100 in, um, and I need to make it to where I'm paying for my own stuff, and I've got to figure out how to make this work. It wasn't a good opportunity, the internship, but I said I got to figure out how to make this work because if I didn't have that crutch, and let's say, and this is what I thought if my parents were sick, if my mom couldn't take care of herself, I'd be so ecstatic to go bag groceries, to do anything, work overnight. I'd take any opportunity gladly. I'm so grateful. So why am I not making the most of what I have right in front of me? So honestly, me being able to sustain and grow as a real estate investor, I started my company a few months after I did that. That was it. That was everything. It changed it when I took away that crutch from myself.
Man, I love that. That's the absolute truth. I think I just had a conversation with a couple of my team members about the same thing, and I said, "You guys live a nerfy life, right?" So I stole that from The Office, and us old guys like The Office. Austin, you might not be a huge Office fan, but it's true. I want to say I'm kind of similar. I grew up the same way as you, and never needed anything, but never had what a lot of other people had, in as far as material items. But I always had that crutch too. And it's not until you kind of let go of those crutches where you have to stand on your own and
Yep.
you start to see that why they talk about the 80-20 rule, right? And why 20% make 80% of the money. I think it's 90-10 now, just to be honest, but that's just my belief, of course, as an entrepreneur. But there's a mindset shift that has to change. And I love what you said about hiring the athletes, because those guys and gals are used to, if they're somewhat decent, and you don't have to be a great athlete, but you can be a great athlete that can take coaching, right?
Right.
And if you can learn how to take coaching, and we take coaching all the time, right? Both of us have had probably multiple coaches in our life, both in athletics and in business, and always seeking more advice. But you have to be able to listen to what other people say, and I think that's ingrained in those athletes. So, you being a little bit younger still, and I like to brag about you for that reason, because I love to see the younger generation building things and just having that awesome mindset. But if you kind of rewind back to when you really first got started, and you talked about that, not having a lot of money, and doing it on your own, and that's super awesome. So for those newer people out there at any age who are feeling some of those stumbling blocks, how did you get through those first few deals, or first couple of years? What do you think the advice you can give some newer investors on that is?
Well, during that time, I was not married. That helps a ton because I was living off of nothing. Everyone thinks that, and I've hired some VAs from the Philippines, and at the time they were making about $2 an hour, 250 an hour, and everyone was like, "Wow, how do you get someone to work for that much?" And it's the exchange rate, and that's actually at the time that was a really good wage for them. But what people didn't know is I was paying myself less than I was paying them. So number one would be just having the ability to make it through not making money. So if you're going to go all in, if you're going to, do real estate as your full-time thing, you need to have either some cushion in savings, which for me, I had barely anything, but you need to be able to ride through those times. If you do make a mistake, you don't want it to take you out of the game. You want to be able to keep playing the game and keep surviving until you can really figure it out and build it to the point that you want to get it.
Yeah, I think some of the mentors, guys who are almost pushing 80 now, again, it shows my age, but those guys and girls I'd listened to 15, 20, actually 25 years ago, the best advice I got from some of them basically was, hey, you just have to get started, right? I hate to be cliche and use like the Nike saying, but you just have to do it. You really do at some point. But the other thing for sure, and we start to learn this as we take on responsibility, and like Austin said, everyone gets paid before him. Everybody does. They have to, because if they don't, then they aren't going to exist in his business, right? But it's creating that cash flow and figuring out whether that's a buffer or you're creating actual organic cash on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. You have to have cash flow in your business, and just have dry powder, because it's air to a business. And without cash, you're just in big trouble. So I think that's really, really great advice on how to make it through those first tough, few months or even years. But what about, Austin, your mindset? I know you pretty well. We'll get into that in a few minutes, but I know that you're a very positive person, and that takes a lot for some people to do that. And even as a positive person, you got to stay up, right? Yeah. So in those first couple of years, when you did get punched in the face, and even today, if you get punched in the face, how can someone who doesn't quite have that yet kind of get that? What's your best advice for them to get to that point where they're tough mentally?
Oh man. Honestly, I think just sticking around, it kind of develops itself over time. Because so number one, you got to remove whatever is your big crutch that's holding you back. Got to remove that. So that's going to allow you to move forward. That's going to allow you to get through some of these stumbling blocks. But you kind of have to prove it to yourself by just sticking around. So for me, I took away my crutch, I cut myself off, and I had to make something work. And I had multiple times after that point where I said, man, I can guarantee you 99% of people would have quit if this happened to them. And I've had 40 instances like that. I'm like, man, if what just happened to me or what is happening to me had happened to anyone else, I would bet a ton of money. They're out. They're quitting. That's done. That's the sign from God. That people will take a hardship and say, oh, that's just a sign I need to get out. Maybe it's a learning lesson. Maybe this is what's going to develop your perseverance. So I think it's just proving it to yourself each time. And if you don't have the positive outlook just naturally, you can always develop that. And that's something I have to work on as well. I'm not just above reproach with that, but yeah, you just prove it to yourself by sticking around. The harder a good mindset to pick up is that, okay, the harder this thing is, and just the worse this situation is, the more I just hate this situation that is happening to me right now. I can just make it through that. That's a huge win because I know so many people would have dropped off it. And you prove it to yourself, and you build it up over time.
Yeah, that's great advice. So first was let go of the crutch. Number two is uh, to persevere and just to stick with it. So I'm gonna keep track of these things because we're gonna have a little like Instagram meme on this later, and I'll tag Austin for sure. But so a lot of guys talk about like elephant skin or hear like rhinoceros skin. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, Austin. Is you got to be able to kind of get beat up, right? And you do have to persevere and what's funny is getting into how I know Austin. So I get to see him quarterly at the Investor Fuel Mastermind. I've met him and his wife Vanessa. Shoot, I think it was 2 full years ago now, or almost 2 years and a quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go by quarter years in the investor fuel world because we see each other every quarter. Right. We get to see each other like this. But I would never know that Austin has to work on being positive because when I see him, he lights up a room. And part of that's natural. Part of that is like having a unique ability. But the other part of that is up here because he makes that happen. That little lightning strike happens in his head. And he says, when I walk in this room and I'm one of the tall guys, I got this big hair, right? Like, and very humble, but he's got that big smile and that energy and is always quick to be, quick with a handshake or to give people praise. And that's something that does come a little natural, but I think it's learned and you have to kind of force it too. But again, I would never know that unless Austin said that. So, that's a testament to your attitude, Austin, and just how people view you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important. And if I can brag about myself, like I'm always smiling too, right? Because you only have two choices. And my smile's not going to go upside down because if it does, then it's really hard to bring it back up, So for digging a little bit deeper into real estate, if you could like in 10 seconds, just talk about like the different transactions that you've done, because I know probably a bunch of them. And then off of that, talk about what you guys are focused on today with your company.
Yeah. So quick version, I built this thing not the way I would recommend. I would recommend focusing on one strategy. I went wide early. So it took a while to get things going, but now we have a lot of tools. So we do lots of flips. We're renovating over 20 properties right now. We have a rental portfolio. Every now and again, we'll owner finance. We'll sell with owner financing. And I'm into mobile home parks. I've got a couple of mobile home parks, some mobile homes. So pretty broad in the real estate space. What I don't do is I don't have any commercial office buildings or anything or self-storage, but pretty much outside of that, just about every type of real estate.
And what do you guys primarily, and I know that you're wide, but what are you primarily focusing on? 80% of Austin's day, what are you doing?
So we just really take anything that comes into our funnels. That happens to be a lot of single family houses. And whenever we get a mobile home park, which we're working on one right now, I'm really excited about, or an apartment building, then we'll go for those. We've got the tools and the systems. So it's not like it's just way outside of our business. We're prepared for those and we take them down. They're just less frequent. So more frequently, we just get single family homes in. We put them through our deal analysis calculator. It either lights up green as a flip or green as a rental. And then we'll just kind of take it one of those routes.
So I like how you said that you're able to kind of field whatever comes towards you. And I use baseball analogies because I'm old school, but it's kind of like the best player on the field is supposed to be a shortstop, right? As far as defense goes. Mm-hmm. So he's got all these, he or she's got all these balls getting like whacked at him at 150 miles an hour, but somehow they always figure out what to do with it, right? So that's what we do as real estate investors and entrepreneurs. But how do you think you guys got to that point to where I could throw a 12-unit apartment building at you, a trailer park, a single family home, or say, hey, I want to buy something rent to own from you. And you're like, no problem. We got that. How did you get to that point?
Well, what I talked about was I went wide instead of going narrow at the beginning. And so my approach as I went wide wasn't, I'm just going to do this deal, I'm going to do that deal, and I'm going to do this other type of exit strategy. It was, hey, I'm going to do this one type of deal over here. I'm going to learn everything I can about it. I'm going to document the best practices that I can find. And then over time, I'm going to refine, test those, and improve it. So it's doing these different types of strategies, but also building processes, building best practices, getting standard contract templates, getting standard ways to analyze these deals along the way. So that now we're at a point where we've got all these systems in place. It's all part of our training. We have phenomenal training. And so people can come in, learn our systems, and then they just kind of drop it into whatever is the appropriate bucket for that deal, and they know what to do with it.
Yeah, so I know because I somewhat know your business obviously more intimately than most people who are listening or watching today, but I know that you're a system and process guy, which you don't find really often, and definitely not with younger people. And I think that's a big part of your success, just from my personal opinion. And the fact again that you guys are a younger couple, and you've built something in my eyes, very, very huge compared to what a lot of other investors nationwide have done so far. So in that, Austin, so you're talking about like training team members and standard operating procedures and all this stuff, all these big words. So what does your organization look like right now? Are you guys actually have like team members? You guys hire people? How does your team look, and what's the structure?
Yeah, so I've got my right-hand man is my integrator. He's kind of the director of operations. Just what the integrator does is they take all my crazy ideas, figure out which of the good ones, which are the ones that we need to do now, or which ones we need to hold off later. And then they just make all the areas of the business work together. And that's kind of from the top down. And then we have a few people in doing acquisitions. So they are talking with a bunch of sellers, going on tours, making offers. We have a project manager. Probably time to get a second, because we've been doing over 20 rehabs for quite a while. We turn them out, but then we keep adding more. We've got a marketing coordinator and administrative assistant, and everything else that we do. So property management, some of our marketing channels we outsource. So we've got 8 people on the team right now, but we outsource a lot of stuff. We keep a lot of contractors fed year round, and they don't have to go anywhere else for work, but they're not on our core team. So it's kind of a mix of the positions that we want to do things in a very specific way, we bring in-house, and then the stuff that either someone is better than us, property management, they are way better than I am at property management, we outsource, or contractors, where the thing with contractors is it's hard to find one that can uphold my core values in the company. They can do great work, and they can be an awesome partner out there in the field with us, and we have great long-term relationships, but it's not they wouldn't necessarily do well inside of the company. So you just kind of have to figure out what your balance would be with the company.
Yeah, that's interesting, because sometimes I find myself doing that same thing. I'll judge people and say this isn't someone who I think would fit day to day. And those are just non-negotiables that we kind of have inside ourselves, right? And sometimes we don't share all that stuff. But what do you look for, flipping that coin to the positive side? What non-negotiables do your team members have to have?
One of them that we talked about is persistence. So as we get to know them, we hear them talk about stories about their highs and their lows, and so we learn if they have persistence or if they just kind of give up and go on to the next thing. So that's one of our core values. We've got more core values that I won't go into all of them right now. That's a big one. And then when we're going to hire for a position, we make what's called a job scorecard. So we already know the exact type of person we're looking for before we start our hiring process. That is a huge thing. So they got to have persistence. They've got to align with our core values, and then we just judge each position based on a set of skills, based on outcomes that we want to have happen, and we rate them based on that. A big tip: a lot of people don't do this in their hiring process. is we go through their career history. So we narrow it down, we get down to a final 2 to 3 people, and we just go job by job through their career history, asking them the same 7 questions, like what attracted you to the job? What do you think about your boss, your supervisor? Why'd you leave? Really simple questions, but you start to see trends and you can learn so much about people through that. So honestly, the best predictor of a good team member is past success at past jobs, good relationships with past bosses. Those go so far.
So, Austin, how many contractors and how many employees do you think you've interacted with since starting your real estate career? Just a round number.
I would say probably 70 people.
Yeah, that's a big number, and to keep those relationships going. What would you say for someone who's just ramping up, right? And they're you could look back in your rearview mirror and say, this company or these folks, they're going to make it. I can see a lot of myself in them. What do you think the biggest mistakes that you've made working with contractors or with your employees, as far as like from a personnel standpoint? Is there anything you can share?
I don't know that it's a mistake necessarily, but something that I am intentional about and something that I've seen every time you kind of go through a group of people that don't work out, they end up leaving or you have to let them go. Every single time that happens in a position, the position gets better. Our training improves after that. We ask for feedback. So that's something that we're really intentional on. So I could look at it as mistakes from the past of, oh, I didn't have this, or I didn't tell them this in the training, or we didn't set them up for success very well in this area. But until you have that experience and until you've built that out and had someone be successful in a position, you don't always know what those things are. So the thing that I focus on instead is just when someone leaves, we're going to break this position apart. We're going to see where did they thrive. So these are the things we're going to do more of. What do they not like? What could we do to improve this opportunity to not only improve the training and the position, what they have, but the opportunity that they have to make more money and enjoy their career more with this. So that's a really good practice to have, because you don't always know what the mistakes are when you're making them when it comes to people.
Sure. And I mean, that's $1 million gold nugget right there. That's not something that you just said it like, that's not something you can learn without doing it. So you're able to share that with us because you guys are actually doing it. So I think that's really, really cool advice. And for real estate investors who are ready to make that first hire, I'm really, really curious. Like, what do you think a real estate investor's first hire should be? Who should that person be?
I would say someone that does something that you just really don't like to do. I had made the mistake. I'm really good at acquisitions. My closing ratio is through the roof. And so there was a point in time where I was doing a little bit of that, a little bit of project management, property management. I was involved in everything. So I thought, oh, I'll replace myself in acquisition. That's what I was best at. So no one right out of the gate is likely going to measure up to how good you are at your best thing. So I would say, if you're making your first hire, keep doing whatever you are the best at or whatever you like the most, and hire someone to do the other stuff, because you can grow your company a lot faster if you keep doing what you're best at until you absolutely can't handle it and then need to replace yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in some of the rooms you and I get to spend time in together, the number one answer would be an assistant, right? Like an executive assistant, someone who can handle stuff for you. And I think the second one is like a project manager, because they're telling you as a real estate investor to try to get off the job sites and to do the important things like bring in deals or bring in money, right? Or partnerships. But I tend to agree with you. I think, I've been told not to do certain things. I really love disposition because I'm a networking guy. I have tons of relationships. I've been in the same area forever. So I know everybody. So I like selling my properties as far as wholesaling goes and dealing with other investors, because I feel like I've got a way bigger leg up on anybody else I'd bring in. And a lot of times it's like, Austin and I have known each other only for a few years, but if I'd known Austin for 20 years, we've done business a bunch of times. How am I going to put somebody in front of me with you? And it doesn't mean we have to spend 20 hours on one deal, but it's super easy for me to text you or call you and be like, hey buddy, I got another one. Right. And I've been told a million times I shouldn't be doing that, but I also love to do it because I get my energy from hanging out with you. And then there's business being done at the same time. So for me, like, it's a double whammy. I don't hang out with a bunch of people like from high school anymore, right? I hang out with all real estate nerds. You know, this is what I love to do. And if I can make money with those nerds that I'm friends with, you know, so much the better, in my opinion. But I'm glad that you said that, because it's a different opinion than I usually hear from people. And one's not wrong, one's not right, but I think that's a great answer. So moving on, talking about networking. I already said that we know each other through Investor Fuel, which is a nationwide mastermind that Austin and I are both a part of. And we get together every single quarter and we get to share our wins. We get to share our losses. More importantly, we really get to talk about our challenges and if Austin's on stage and talking about his challenges and I have something great to chime in with, I get to let him know or catch him afterwards. And hopefully if he's stumbling on something or vice versa, we can connect and help each other. And that's really what a mastermind's all about, right? You've got a bunch of people working on one problem together. So it's a really, really great place to be. And if you're not in a mastermind, you should be in one. You don't have to be in a big nationwide mastermind like we are in Investor Fuel. You can have your own little group, you know, right in your neighborhood if you wanted to do something like that. But Austin, I know that you guys have run some of your own meetups, and I would imagine you're very, very networked in your area and outside your area even. How important has networking been to you as a real estate investor?
Well, to be honest, networking has to be leveraged in the right ways. It doesn't automatically just yield fruit for you. So I'm a huge proponent of just giving, add value as much as you can with no expectation of anything in return. And we actually had talked about this, and you're the one that helped me with it, is when you have a meetup group. I've had a local meetup here in Lubbock, the Lubbock Real Estate Investors Group, for about 4 years now, and just give, and hadn't ever gotten a deal from it or really much, but I was happy because people need to network. But with that networking, if you can just be intentional about one thing to put in people's brains, to kind of stay top of mind. And that's, for me, that was, hey, you know, if you need help analyzing a deal, I know Lubbock like the back of my hand. I've got tools with data to, you know, help you get this deal done quickly. Just reach out. I'm happy to give you free advice. Gotten now multiple deals from my meetup group through networking. So yes, it's important. Got to always be networking, but you can't assume that good things are going to happen. You need to have some sort of a focus that you can kind of put top of mind with people. They're meeting a bunch of new people too. It's like, who are you going to remember? What did we talk about? What did that person do? So if you can just have something that sticks in people's minds from networking, then you can actually, you know, have some good things happen to you as you're helping a lot of other people.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's kind of like, if you get a gym membership, that's great. But if you don't go to the gym and actually do something, then your gym membership is a bit benign, right? There's another Investor Fuel member, James, who I talk to on a regular basis, and James Spence. So he's down in Texas with you, but he's over in Dallas. And he always made fun of me in a good way, because I had a checklist of people or things that I needed to like get figured out every Investor Fuel I went to. And some of them were just like generic, like, hey, I want to take 3 selfies today. Hey, I want to go live today. Hey, I want to, I want to make sure I'm connecting with this person or this person, because I didn't see them last quarter. And I'm doing the same thing as you, Austin. I'm giving without taking, so much so that sometimes it almost hurts, right? But then what comes out of that after a few years, there's just relationships that are built, and like like you guys. So you bring your wife Vanessa to pretty much every event, right? To every Investor Fuel event. So when you get to know like a couple or a family, it just changes that dynamic. And there's a few other members who always have either their kids with them or their partners or spouses with them, and you build those relationships. And when you're back home and you're like, oh my gosh, Austin said he needed this, right? And sometimes that, like you said, that just jogs your memory, and now you deliver that value to that person. But you start to build these relationships, and when you're intentional, you don't always have to do it just to make money, right? But if you're listening to what they're asking for, right, and you're giving it to them, the same way when we buy houses, the best house buyers in the entire world and the best salespeople are the best at asking questions, right, and then shutting up and letting the person tell them what they need, and then us fulfilling that, right? So the same thing with networking. And a lot of people talk about meetups, and what would you say that your best advice is for newer investors who are shy to go to meetups, or they haven't seeked out any meetups yet?
You gotta go, because you're gonna meet people that are going to just open your mind to do things you didn't think were possible. Like, you may have this huge problem that you can't get it figured out, and you're just, maybe it's your first deal that you're looking at, and you're like, man, I just can't get over this one thing on the project. And you go to a meetup, and it's this big monster in your head. You go there, you talk to someone that's been there, done that, and they say, oh yeah, you just need to do this. It's like, they know this. It's not even a problem for them anymore. They might not think anything of it. It just blew your mind, and all of a sudden opened possibilities for you that, hey, now I can do this deal. And so it's not just what you learn there, but it's also just people that are going to show you that, hey, I've got a quick solution for your problem. I've been there, done that. You see that, oh, what I'm doing is possible.
Yeah, busting through those limiting beliefs. And I think we may have talked about this off camera. All I do is talk to people, right? So I don't remember who I talked about it with, but a lot of us aren't raised, whether it's from our family, or again, talking about like the coaches or the teachers. We're not raised to believe we can do a lot more than what the average person does. And that's because the average person is average. So there's somehow in our lives as entrepreneurs where that just clicks, right? And we figure out, again, going to a meetup or a RIA, whatever it's called in your area. And I was sitting with a guy earlier today, and he was buying one house a year. And he started in 2018 or whatever. And this is 4 years later. And now he's got like 42 or 45 rental units. He told me that started with one house a year. He goes, and it wasn't until I came to your meeting that I saw some guy who had like 30 houses. And I said, I'm smarter than him. And that's not like putting down the person who had the 30 houses, but it's saying, wait a minute. If Dylan can do it, Austin's like, shoot, I can do it, right? And if Austin can do it, I say the same thing. So I think it's really important to build that mindset. That positivity we talked about a little earlier is super important. I mean, I think that's even more foundational for me anyway. But then having that belief that you can do something. I'm probably not going to do a 360 dunk from the free throw line, right? Not on a 10-foot rim. So I have to be realistic, but I also never thought that I would be where I am. And in the short couple years ago when I met you, I know that you guys have stacked more units on, and you guys have achieved more. And I don't know if you'd say to me right now, and you can answer this, 2.5 years ago, I didn't know we would be here already. And it's been a short period of time.
Yeah. When I joined Investor Fuel, that was May 2021. So about a year and a half ago right now, we weren't even at 100 rental units. So now we're almost at 200. We will be pretty soon, the next couple of months. So yeah, it's crazy. But I think about that all the time. I'm like, man, the people I'm hanging out with, the things I'm doing, I would have never guessed just 2 years ago that I would be in these situations, doing these things. It seems like it's always been like that. We're not really good at predicting our own futures.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I don't think any of us really know what we're capable of. And, everybody has their different beliefs, but my belief is if you're here, like, you should basically do your best, no matter what that is. You should be trying to be the best person you can be. Otherwise, if you're breathing all this wonderful air, right, and you got the green grass underneath you, like, what are you here for if you're not trying to be the best person that you can be and use those gifts that you are given, and even sharpen them, right, and get even better with them. So this leads me to the question I always like to ask our guests. One of the last questions today is for the newer investors out there who are just ready to get started, right? They haven't even put that Nike swoosh on that says just do it. What is your absolute best advice that you can give someone who wants to become a real estate investor?
I've really got two things, but if I had to pick
we've got time for three, Austin. So
I only got two. Okay, so the first one, if you're looking to get your first deal, your superpower is going to be doing things that the guys that have been around for a while can't do or won't do because they're too comfortable now. So that superpower is follow up. My first ever deal that I got, I think I followed up with her like 26 times. And there were other wholesalers that were looking at this deal, and I didn't do any marketing. I saw it on Craigslist. Everyone in town saw it and everyone called her. But I followed up 26 times, and I was looking at her deal and like two other properties. So your lack of having a large pipeline and having a large business is your superpower when you're starting out. You can just hone in on one deal and just be like a dog with a bone. So don't see that as a negative. That is something that you need to take full advantage of while you can. Because then one day you'll have enough business where you can't really do that anymore and focus that much on the deal. The other thing, so whether you've got that deal now locked up and you want to buy it, let's say you're wanting to buy it for yourself as a rental or even as a flip, is I started out, I had, like you said, I had $1,000 when I started this business. And so I had to get a deal without putting money into it. There was no way I couldn't afford putting money into a deal. But how I did that first deal of being able to fund it without my own money is the same structure that's allowed me to scale to 189 units. Is every single property has to have equity in itself. I'm not putting money down to pay for the equity. It's got to have equity when we buy it. We do a lot of big rehabs, so that's how we make it work. But I had the fortunate disadvantage of not having money starting out. And people that start out with money, they just think, oh, I'll throw this much into this property, I'll throw this much into that property. And then they run out of money after just a few properties. So if you keep that mindset for the first one, it's going to also open up doors if you do want to scale up and buy more rapidly or fast track your path to retirement. If you do it that way consistently, it's going to allow you to get there a lot faster.
Yeah, those are two. Those things should be just written in stone. I mean, that was awesome. So if you guys listen to that, rewind and listen to that again. That's the best advice we've gotten in a long time on the show. And Austin is by far one of the biggest givers that I know. He really is. And he has 20. Okay, so let me break this down for you guys. He has 20 rehabs or so going on right now. Rehabs are like buy, fix, and flip. Okay, like all the stuff you see on TV, which we know is a lot more work than what it looks like in real life, right? So he's got 20 rehabs going on. He's got almost 200 rental properties. He's got a thriving business. He's got a bunch of employees, but he took his time out of his day, right, to come and bring this value to the show. So we all appreciate that very, very much, Austin. And you are really and truly one of the biggest givers, which you receive that award almost every time you come to Investor Fuel. So we appreciate you for that. But you have one more question to answer. So you've poured a bunch into us. If there's anything that anyone out there is listening or watching right now can do for you, what do you need in your business right now from the universe that might come right back around to you?
Great question. You caught me off guard. But luckily, I think my answer has been the same to that question for a while. It kind of ebbs and flows. And this is what all real estate investors are looking for, is more deals and more private lenders to work with. I've got an awesome group of private lenders. I'm always looking to add more. We're doing a lot of deals, always looking to add more. So, and I'm in the Lubbock, Texas market. So really that's always what we're striving to grow in, those two things.
Perfect. So we're going to have all your info below, Austin. We'll have links to all of Austin's social media. And if there's any specific sites that you want to give out right now, Austin, or let us know what the best way is for people to reach out to you if they do have any real estate opportunities or funding availability in the Lubbock area.
Yeah, just go to our website, undersunhomes.com. So it's Thunder, and then Sun is SUN, like the ball in the sky. ThunderSunHomes.com. We've got different links on there if you have a property to sell or want to invest or learn more about what we do.
So to help that stick in people's minds, where did Thunder Sun come from?
This isn't going to help it stick, but I did a word scramble. I took my first, middle, and last name, scrambled up the letters, and then just kind of placed them in. I said, that kind of looks cool.
Unbelievable. That almost doesn't count, right? But no, that's an awesome story. And Austin, like I said, man, you've been an absolute giver today, and you just poured a ton of information into everybody who's listening. So we appreciate you so much for that. All of Austin's links to his social media are going to be below in the show notes. And as you guys know, we take all the notes so that you don't have to. If you have missed anything on the show, go to flipnerd.com and go to the Real Estate Investing Secrets Show. My name's Dylan Tanaka. I'm known as a hybrid investor agent. So if you guys want to learn more about me or what I'm doing in my business, you go to thedylantanaka.com. And otherwise, from Austin and myself, we appreciate you guys, and we will see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to today's show. There are 3 ways I can help you start or grow your real estate investing business. If you're a new investor and just getting started, the Flip Nerd Investor Coaching Program is the most effective program in America. I've been coaching and mentoring new real estate investors for 10 years, and my students have literally purchased thousands and thousands of properties. Many of them started with little to no experience at all. Our program is a paint-by-numbers program where we tell you exactly what to do week by week to make sure that you don't get distracted on your way to results. We show you how to build a real business, not just create another job for yourself. New memberships are limited. You can learn more and apply or schedule a call with me and my team at flipnerd.com/coaching. If you're an experienced investor doing a minimum of 10 deals a year, up to 500 deals a year or more, or have a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio already, you should check out our powerful Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. Over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors are members, and it's not uncommon for our members to 2 to 5x their business just from getting around other members at Investor Fuel. At Investor Fuel, each of us are business advisors to one another's businesses, but we don't stop at business. We focus heavily on becoming better people and living fuller lives. If you're looking for fuel for your business or fuel for your life, please check out investorfuel.com. Applications and interviews are required, as most investors are not a fit for our community. Please learn more at investorfuel.com. If you're not ready for coaching or masterminds but eager to start learning more about investing, please join our private Facebook group by visiting flipnerd.com/Facebook. New members get access to free training from us right here at flipnerd.com, and it's a community to safely ask your questions, a great place to get started. Simply go to flipnerd.com/Facebook to request your access today.